Well, there's different types of people that are looking at buying laundromats. There's you have your younger millennials and your older Gen Z. And I know this because they're the ones contacting me to buy my laundromat, which I'm not actually for sale. But, obviously for the right price, I would sell.
Everybody's for sale. Come on.
That's right. Well, I already beat you to it. I said for the right price, of course I would sell. But
let's talk about passive income. You've been mentioning laundromats as passive income, which I actually don't disagree with you. But talk to me about laundromats as passive income here.
Well, the best way to talk about it is first we have to define what is passive income. Because if we don't agree with what passive income is, then of course, it's going to be impossible to get to a common ground of, what is passive income. To me, passive income is...
Let's talk a little bit about buying a laundromat and specifically those that are having trouble buying the laundromat. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because it can be tough to pull the trigger to buy your first laundromat, your first business. But do you have any thoughts on that in particular?
So when I went to buy this laundromat, for me, it was like I didn't have to worry about my personality. Can I handle it? I've never done this before. That was not a factor for me. In fact, because I had owned other businesses, I felt very confident that I could turn this into something that would work. What kept me up at night was...
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with the Laundromat Resource Podcast. This is show 182, and I am pumped that you're here today. Today, we have back on the show Jason Foster, who has one of the most popular episodes of the podcast. We talk about how to succeed with a mom and pop laundromat. And if you haven't listened to it, I believe it's episode... we talk about it in the intro. I forget now off the top of my head, but it ends with the 2. I know that because this one also ends with the 2, 182. Which, by the way, for this episode and any episode, you can access the show notes page with more information about the guest, links to anything we discuss, and a whole lot more at laundromatresource.com/show 182 for this episode or whatever episode you listen to, just laundromatresource.com/show, and then the number of the episode. So it's a little fast lane tip for you right there on how to get more information, including contact information for most of the guests. laundromatresource.com/show, and then the episode number. This one's 182. Go check it out over there today. Listen, Jason and I are really getting into it and philosophizing today. And one of the hot topics that we talk about is our laundromat's passive income. So that's something we're getting into. I would love to hear you weighing in on how you think about laundromats and your philosophy of laundromats and business. Shoot me an email, jordan@laundromatresource.com, or go comment on the forums, your take on the discussions around today's episode. Lots of hot topics to discuss. All right. Before we jump into it with Jason, here's a quick word from our sponsors, which you're not going to want to miss because there's something in it for you. And then we'll jump right on into it with Jason on the back end. This ad has some urgency behind it because this is the last week for you to sign up to win a free website and a full branding package for your laundromat business. It's the last week to sign up with our partners at Business Marketing Resource. Listen, they do a whole bunch of things for laundromat owners. They run ads, they build websites, they do SEO, they have branding and logo design, all that stuff they do. But right now they're giving away a free website and a full branding package. This is worth money in your pocket from a professional marketing team for free for you. And not only that, but they're also giving away a whole bunch of really good secondary prizes. So all you have to do to sign up is head over to buildwithbmr.com/win, buildwithbmr.com/win, and fill out that form. Then you will be entered to win. I will be announcing the winner right here on the podcast next week, February 18th, 2025. So again, buildwithbmr.com/win, fill out that form. You got nothing to lose, only amazingness to gain, and this will translate to your bottom dollar. So buildwithbmr.com/win, go sign up, fill out that form, and hey, listen, go put some more money in your pocket. That's what we're all about.
All right, Jason, welcome back on the show. You're an alumni here, 2-time alumni plus a Q&A alumni. episode, you were just telling me 92 and 102, and then there's a Q&A on the YouTube archives over there. All super duper popular episodes. And we're back to philosophize a little bit today. I'm super excited about that. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. And I do feel like an alumni, almost a little bit of a veteran of Laundromat Resource. So this is great.
Yeah. Veteran is a better word than alumni because you have not graduated from our community here. Because here you are.
I don't even know what I have to do to graduate.
You got to get sick of me, really.
I don't think you know what I have to do.
You're probably on the verge of. Yeah, I don't. No, but hey, man, I'm super excited to jump on here. We've already kind of chatted. We chatted for like a long. We should just hit record when we started chatting there. But I'm super excited to get into this with you today. But real quick, for anybody who hasn't listened to your episodes, first of all, go back laundromatresource.com/show92 and /show102 and check those ones out. They're awesome. And particularly that show 92 is a super popular episode there. So go check that one out. But why don't you give us a little bit of background, just tiny bit, and catch us up, and then we'll get into some philosophizing here.
All right. So my name is Jason. It's still Jason.
Okay.
And I live in Western Massachusetts, which is about 90 miles west of Boston. I've been
real quick on that point. Can you just tell us how cold is it there right now?
When I got up this morning, got into my car to head to the gym, it was 7 below zero. Supposedly wind chill to bring it closer to -15. It was cold.
No.
It was cold.
No, just no. Like humans should not be in that weather. I don't think that should be the case. Okay. Anyway, sorry for cutting you off.
I also don't mind being on a beach every now and then either.
That's right.
But
try doing it every day.
Skiing and cold.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in the Northeast. We're Northampton, Mass, 90 miles west of Boston. My background is I guess I'm an entrepreneur. I've been involved with either as a 100% owner, equal business partner, or an equity investor / partner with about 6 or 7 different businesses. My most recent and last business is a laundromat. I bought my laundromat 6 years ago. It's about 1,000 square feet, 100% unattended, and no wash, dry, fold. Everything is self-service. So my customers generate 100% of the revenue that I receive. And that's the way I've preferred it so far. And there's a chance I could get into a wash, dry, fold. But the big change since the last time I was on is I'm an empty nester now. So my wife and I have been trying to figure out how do we plan our lifestyle so that we can travel and not be burdened with an unattended laundromat. So I've spent a lot of time setting up my laundromat so it's more passive income and less hands-on me being there all the time, or even 10 to 15 hours a week, so that we have the flexibility in our schedule to travel and enjoy life as, empty nesters should.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congrats on kicking the kids out of the house. I mean, that's a big win for you right there. No, but seriously, what I love about that is, and we've talked about this before, but what I love about that is that, it's easy to lose sight of why we build businesses, right? Like we build businesses, or we buy businesses, we run businesses to give us the kind of life that we want to build for ourselves, right? Like I'll just be honest, like even a laundromat, which is a pretty simple business, at least at first, having a business or running a business almost always is harder than, at least at first, is harder than having just a job, right? And so in order to learn the skills you need to learn to own a business, buy a business, run a business, there's a learning curve that goes into that. And you have been fortunate that you've kind of spent like a lifetime developing those skills. So by the time you got to laundromats, you're like, this business is awesome. It's easy, or simple.
Yeah, I guess. I had a sense for how to run and own a business, but I didn't know anything about machines or the laundromat industry. In fact, I was a little anxious building the week before I bought the laundromat because I didn't know anything about the laundromat industry. But the confidence that I had was I knew how to run a business, and I knew that I could somehow turn this into something that would eventually become passive income. But it didn't happen overnight, and there's a methodology to the steps involved to creating what I would define as passive income out of your laundromat.
Okay, so you're hitting a hot button issue here, which I love and I really want to get into. But real quick, before we start talking passive income, because I do want to get into that. It's it's the buzzword the gurus use to lure the masses into their courses a lot of times. And it's the word that laundromat owners on Facebook groups and forums love to hate and love to make fun of. So I definitely want to get into that and share your and my philosophies on passive income and laundromats. But before we do that, maybe we can start with, if we're going to philosophize a little bit here, let's start with buying a laundromat. You mentioned, you've owned businesses, you've run businesses for years before you bought this laundromat, right? And you had a little bit of anxiety there, for it because there's a lot that you didn't know. Let's talk a little bit about buying a laundromat and specifically those that are having trouble buying the laundromat. What do you have any thoughts on that? Because it can be tough to pull the trigger to buy your first laundromat, your first business. But do you have any thoughts on that in particular?
Sure. So when I got involved with my very first business, which wasn't a laundromat, it ended up evolving into a syndicated market research company. There weren't a lot of things that I was thinking about. First of all, I was in my 20s, my early / mid 20s. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't even aware of all the things I didn't know, now that I'm much older. But when I was buying that or buying into or investing in that business, I had two business partners. So I had two people that I could lean on, and we could figure out together, how do we grow from point A to point B? And I was lucky it worked out well. But as you get involved with your second business, you have a different type of confidence, and then your third and fourth. And the other thing is you have a little more financial security and freedom. So when I went to buy this laundromat, for me, it was like I didn't have to worry about my personality. Can I handle it? I've never done this before. That was not a factor for me. In fact, because I had owned other businesses, I felt very confident that I could turn this into something that would work. What kept me up at night was I don't know anything about machines. So what happens if a pipe bursts at 3 a.m? Well, I don't know a plumber. Am I going to call a plumber and deal with massive flooding in my laundromat? So those are the things that really concern me. And the other piece was my whole life, pretty much, I had been dealing with white collar business. When you own a laundromat, you're dealing with the ethnography of people in the laundromat as all walks of life. So I had never dealt with the general public like that before. And it's not that it's better or worse. It's just a different set of people and customers that you have to orient your mind to dealing with. So I didn't have that experience. But for me, when it came to buying a laundromat, there was not a hesitation in this is a business. I'm not sure. I'm leaving something out. I wasn't leaving the security of a job or employment. And I already had enough savings to be able to capitalize the laundromat however I wanted to. So I didn't have those considerations. And I think there's different types of people that are looking at buying laundromats. There's you have your younger millennials and your older Gen Z. And I know this because they're the ones contacting me to buy my laundromat, which I'm not actually for sale. But, obviously for the right price, I would sell.
Everybody's for sale. Come on.
That's right. Well, I already beat you to it. I said for the right price, of course I would sell. But then there's I would say, over 50 demographics, people that have already had a little bit of a career, and now they're looking to set themselves up in retirement to generate some income that doesn't cause them to dip into their savings. Right? So maybe I fall into that category when I was buying this laundromat. And it's very different philosophies, because if you're in your 20s or even early 30s, I think the considerations are going to be different than when you're in your 50s. Because when you're in your 50s, you know better and you know too much. And if you've never owned a business, I think it's much more intimidating in your 50s to buy into a laundromat because, they're not cheap. Or I mean, some of them are, but everything comes with a price.
Yeah, they're not cheap. Even the cheap ones are not cheap.
And you're now taking a big leap of faith in yourself. So there's a personality you have to sort of investigate and internalize. Like I was born an entrepreneur, circumstance and some of the things that I did caused me to be in situations where I was entrepreneurial. But if you've never owned a business, then you sort of have to analyze, are you the type of person that can own a business or buy a business? And I hear stories about people that have been looking to buy a laundromat for a year or 2 or 3. Well, sometimes, and there are exceptions, sometimes you can't find the right business. The numbers don't work. It doesn't make sense and it's a bad investment. But more times than not, just from the own interactions I've had with people, and in particular, it's more of the over 50 crowd, it's a little bit of a personality conflict because they're looking for this silver bullet and it doesn't exist. You're never going to find a risk-free scenario where you invest, let's just say $300,000 or $500,000, and there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So I think that creates a lot of hesitation in people that they're going to have to look within and say, why haven't I been able to find a laundromat suitable for me in 18 months or 24 months? Because I can tell you, like, if I were to go out and start looking for a laundromat, unless the numbers don't work, and there's always a way to justify that they don't work, but if the numbers truly don't work, I'm not going to invest in it. But I've had opportunity at least 3 times now to buy laundromats within a 5-mile radius of my house. And some of them I've passed just because I'm not looking to take on new things. And I didn't want to have to deal with a wash, dry, fold. But so I feel like maybe I'm in a rare exception in terms of like where I am in the Northeast. But from what I've come to understand, if you could put me into Colorado, you could put me into Iowa, you could put me anywhere, and I feel like I could probably find an opportunity because that's my personality. I'm not going to jump into something if the numbers don't make sense. But when I bought my laundromat, I didn't know anything about the numbers. I knew what the owner was telling me. I knew how to calculate what I thought the revenue should be. I did my own diligence. But other than that, it was my entrepreneurial personality and experience that allowed me to just, I'm going to pull the trigger. I mean, I started talking to the owner in, let's say, October. By December, we had a deal. And so there's this whole philosophy of, is it really you can't find the right investment, or is there something else that's holding you back from buying that laundromat? Because those Gen Zs and the millennials, they don't have any hesitation. They just want to get a better deal. And, when they talk to me, they're hoping to grab my laundromat for $100,000. And it's just not going to happen with me. But, they didn't have the hesitation of, do I know what I'm doing? They were ready to do it.
Yeah. Well, so I encounter this all the time. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but like I encounter this all the time. And I have clients even now where, we've been looking for a long time. And, part of it is there's a mindset of like wanting to, it's like the analogy of having like green lights all the way down the road before you get started, right? They want to know exactly what's going on in that they're going to have green lights going all the way down the road instead of, going. And when the red lights come, you just wait or you do what you need to do. And then when the light turns green, you keep going. Right. And, the thing about the industry right now is that when it comes to buying, is that it is a seller's market by and large. And in a seller's market where there's many more buyers than there are sellers at the moment in most markets, quick action is what's going to get a deal done, right? And so having an idea of what you're looking for and taking action on it. So reaching out to the owners like no harm done if I say, hey, Jason, like, are you interested in selling, for $100,000 or whatever? And you're like, you got to give me like 10 times that if I want to sell. okay, well, no harm done to me, right? But I've taken some action, right? Trying to find, now maybe I'm fishing in the wrong pond or whatever, but that action is what's required. And by doing that over and over and over again, you start to get a feel for what exactly you're looking for. And by taking that action, you start to get a feel for, okay, well, what are owners really wanting, right? What's it going to take to get an owner to sell? How do I communicate with an owner or a broker or whatever, right? In order to do that, when you're taking action, you're learning in a way that you can't learn on YouTube. You can't learn on a podcast. You can't learn reading a blog post or in a forum. You're learning in ways that are going to benefit you. And I've seen this happen over and over with consulting clients, right? Where they've taken the action that I've told them to take, and eventually they come across one where they're like, this is the one. Like, I've seen a lot of deals now, and this is the one. I know exactly what I'm looking for, right? But it's that action and then jumping on it quickly when you know that it's the one that you need to take action on.
Right.
And
well,
that,
sometimes,
yeah, go ahead.
Well,
No,
sometimes you need to be creative too. I mean, I'll give you a real example that happened, several months ago. I had a young woman approach me, and she seemed very, very serious, and apparently had capital and funding and a wealthy grandfather who was going to fund a deal from an entrepreneurial family. And she wanted to buy the laundromat. I said, look, it's going to take probably 7x of my net revenue, because I wasn't motivated, but that would motivate me. And in the end, we actually started going down a path that was a little more creative. I really didn't want to sell, even for an inflated price, but I liked what she planned on doing. She was going to be acquiring laundromats in different parts of New England. All, of course, in theory. And if she had the funding to do that, I thought, you know what? Maybe I sell a minority percentage of my laundromat so that I can get a minority percentage of what she's trying to build. And I had never thought of that until I'm literally in the middle of potentially doing a deal. And I thought, wait, this could be an interesting way to structure it. So for all those people that are looking to buy a laundromat, perhaps you could think about approaching an owner and saying, don't sell me all of it, sell me a part of it, but I want rights of first refusal if and when you do decide to sell the rest. So now you're already in line, guaranteed by law, to acquire the rest of it. And it'll help you get your feet wet with, the laundromat and getting to know the business without investing $500,000. Now maybe you're investing $100,000, but you're also sharing in 20% of those profits. And so it could be a better way to not take all the risk. Yes, you're taking on a business partner that you may not know that well, but maybe you get to know them before you actually do that kind of deal. But the other piece of, all right, I'm not for sale, and I wasn't looking to sell the laundromat, but when someone does approach me, and this is a little bit of leverage for the potential buyers out there, yeah, it's a seller's market. But when a buyer approaches me and they tell me they're well-funded, they're serious about buying a laundromat, the first thought I have in my head is, what happens if they go to one of my competitors who's not really that savvy? They don't have new equipment. They're probably looking to sell potentially. Like, what happens to my laundromat when that new investor and new money and new energy goes into a competitor of mine? That is also a concern of mine. So, don't think for a second that owners don't think about, well, if this person's really serious, and even though I can't agree on price, maybe I should do something, because the potential that they're going to begin to compete with you with new money and new energy, that also gives owners pause when they're saying, I'm not for sale. So, there's a couple sides to this, but even though it is a seller's market, there are considerations that sellers have to think about when a serious person approaches them that they think and know have money, and that they're able, and that they're itching to do something with to deploy that money. So, that's also something I think about. But in the end, I don't think it's such a bad idea to have a minority percentage of a laundromat just to get your feet into the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me. I did a podcast episode a while back, and talking about one of the things that is required for us to succeed in anything really is tenacity, right? And so part of that tenacity, like I love the creative angle there because, you know, especially as a buyer in a seller's market, like that creativity can be the distinguishing factor. About as creative as most people get is, hey, are you willing to offer seller financing, right? Like that's about as creative as most people get. But like you said, there's thousands of ways to get creative, you know, in this business, right? And I've seen people do stuff like that where they buy a minority share. I've bought minority shares in laundromats before.
By the way, my motivation for selling a minority share is to get back into that passive income lifestyle that we're going to talk about. Because when I travel and I have to deal with something, if I have a minority partner that in our arrangement, they know that X number of days a year, they're dealing with the operations and headaches and anything that might arise, that had a lot of appeal to me. So I was willing to give up, of course, for a profit, but I was willing to give up a certain percentage so that I now had someone I could rely on when I'm not always in Northampton or near my laundromat.
Yeah. Well, and that what you just said is key. And I talk to my consulting clients about this a lot, right? Is what you need to do, whether you're talking with an owner or a landlord and you're negotiating a lease, right? What you need to do is figure out what's important to that seller or that landlord, right? Figure out what's important to that seller and figure out a way to help them get what they want. Like for you, right? Empty nester, you're looking to make things more passive, you're wanting to travel more. So if I know that as a buyer, my brain kicks into overdrive saying, okay, how do I solve Jason's problem? Right? How do I help him make his business more passive in a way that benefits him, in a way that benefits me, so that everybody wins? And if you can solve that problem, which is entrepreneurship, right? Solving problems for a profit. If you can solve that problem for Jason, guess what? Now all of a sudden he's intrigued and he's more likely, it doesn't guarantee you a win or anything, but he's much more likely to do something with you now or in the future. There. So I love what you said there. And, you know, it's a lot of it's about building these relationships with these owners and figuring out like, hey, what's important to you? You know, whether you're selling now or not selling, like what's important to you? Oh, your kids just left the house. Oh, you're trying to travel more. Oh, I wonder if there's something I can do to help you travel more. Well, maybe I just volunteer to run your business X number of days, right, you know, a year for you as a way to kind of get my foot in the door with a plan to get a minority share or partner on a deal because I know you have more capital that you want to deploy later. And maybe we do a partnership on the next deal where I'm running the operations and you're bringing the capital, or, you know, those kinds of things, right, where I'm solving problems that maybe you didn't even know that could be solved that way, right? Like that's where opportunities arise.
That's right. And it was interesting because this particular individual picked up on some of that. And she actually even said, look, I think you have this interesting strategic business mind that maybe we can deploy in a way that's useful for both of us. And if we're going to acquire laundromats together, you're the one that's going to understand the business. You'll know if the numbers make sense. You know, you'll know how to put a deal together, the things that she didn't have any experience with. But, you know, so it was like the minute I started thinking about it, I thought, you know, maybe this isn't such a bad idea. But in the end, I don't think there was the capital there and the other thing. So that's sort of how it fell apart. And it was great because I didn't really lose anything. I still have the laundromat that I still like. But I will say when someone does approach you and they say, I have however many couple hundred, $300,000, $400,000, and they, you know, it's cash, it does make you think, wouldn't it be nice to just put that in a bank account or invest it? So, you know, there are these things that you don't think you might be stuck on a certain price, but the minute like real money is put on the table, it does make you think twice. So for all those potential buyers out there, just know that when you put an offer in, even if you're not agreeing on price, it is planting a seed in that seller's mind, and it might actually happen. You know, they might say, well, if I was stuck at 800,000 and all of a sudden you offer 6, maybe they'll take it because money talks. And I didn't think that I would reevaluate. But when she started putting money on the table, I thought, maybe it wouldn't be so bad to put that to work for me in other ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want to get into the passive income stuff. So I'm going to ask this last question on the buying side, and then let's talk about passive incomes and laundromats. So to the person who has been thinking or saying or quote unquote trying to buy a laundromat for a year, 2 years, 4 years, 10 years. I've talked to all of these people. You have anything to say, to those people to try to, get them off the couch? No pun intended, because you're on a couch right now.
Right. I'm not
Yeah.
getting off. There's no perfect deal. There's nothing that's going to say, look, there's no risk involved. There is risk. So you're just going to have to make a decision. Is this something you want to do or not do? Don't stop kidding yourself. The perfect deal doesn't exist, but there are opportunities. So you're either going to take the opportunity or just walk away from the concept of trying to buy a laundromat, because they exist. Prices are a little inflated. Maybe it's not the greatest investment for the return you're looking for, but you will get a return. It just depends on whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, but the return does exist. So if you have a longer timeline for getting a return, you got to pull the trigger. Otherwise, you're never going to do it. You've proven you're not going to do it. So now is the time to either get serious or just admit to yourself that there's something else holding you back, and it's not the actual numbers of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times it's our own minds, right? It's our own mindset. I've been seeing this a lot in myself even lately, where my mindset is, it holds me back, right? And that in my experience, that is a real thing, that our mindsets and the ways we think about things can hold us back from accomplishing stuff. And, I'll say all that while at the same time acknowledging, I get it. Like it's scary buying a business, especially if it's your first business or your first foray into this business, as you experienced as an experienced owner, some anxiety getting into the business, right? So it's scary, but you got to do it anyways, right? Like you're not going to get anywhere if you don't take the action. So you got to do it. You got to do it anyways. You got to go for it.
And the action, I talked about personality. A lot of people might not understand that when you're an entrepreneur, I didn't become an entrepreneur because I thought, I'm going to get rich and I want to have my own business. And the best way to get rich is to have your own business. I became an entrepreneur so that I could control my life and be completely dependent for the most part on what I'm doing and not having an employer. So for those people that haven't pulled the trigger, understand that it is like, if you want to take control of your life, pulling that trigger on buying something, whether it's a laundromat or self-storage or whatever the other options are, that's what it takes. And it is a little scary and intimidating, but think of it as you're controlling your life and your destiny and setting yourself up for the future and potentially that passive income, versus your whole life you've worked for somebody, you've been an employee. It is a scary step. But if you don't take it, it's never going to happen.
Okay. So if we don't talk about this, you're going to get massacred online by other laundromat owners. So we need to jump into passive income, and laundromats is passive income. Again, this is a controversial topic. This is what appeals to so many of the masses. Why laundromats appeal to so many of the masses, because they're seen as passive income, along with a lot of other stuff, right? Real estate investing, self-storage, vending machines, yada, yada, yada. But if you've ever owned a laundromat, and I say this all the time, right? Whenever you're dealing with people or machines, you're going to have problems. And with laundromats, you're dealing with a whole lot of both, right? So there's problems that come up. There's things you have to do. So let's talk about passive income. You've been mentioning laundromats as passive income, which I actually don't disagree with you. But talk to me about laundromats as passive income here.
Well, the best way to talk about it is, first we have to define what is passive income. Because if we don't agree with what passive income is, then of course, it's going to be impossible to get to a common ground of, what is passive income. To me, passive income is money that is being generated without 100% of your time required to generate that revenue. So if you're normally working a 40-hour week as an employee, well, you get a certain income. What happens if you could get close to or the same income for working 20 hours a week? To me, now you're beginning to earn passive income. Working 20 hours, getting almost the same income. Well, what happens if you reduce that to 10 hours a week and getting close to or the same income? That's also passive income. So, Jordan, how do you define passive income?
So the way that I mean, you're hitting on so the way I would define it is non-correlation of money and time, right? And so, and I think when we hear, I think it's a misnomer. I think it's like not a good name for it. It's a catchy name for it because passive does imply we're not doing anything, right? And so I don't agree with that. I think we're both in agreement. There really isn't any true passive income sources, especially if you're going to own any kind of business. Like they're just real estate investing, not passive in the sense of you don't do anything, even fully managed, you're still doing stuff, right? Like, but if you can divorce time input from money input, to me, that is how I would define passive income. So for everybody listening right now that's on the Facebook forums with all the, the quote unquote passive income posts where somebody's peeing in your trash can, or I had somebody poop in a styrofoam cup and just leave it in the middle of the floor.
In the trash is a step up from what happened to me, a few weeks ago.
On Christmas, right? On Christmas Day. Yeah.
I have a Christmas video up, a short video of that exact scenario.
Yeah. Speaking of which, let's just pause just for a second. I want to get back into passive income, but you have a YouTube channel. I want to give it a quick plug here.
Oh, thank you.
You just started a YouTube channel where you're sharing your stuff. Can you share with us what that YouTube channel is or how people can find it?
Yeah. So the YouTube channel it's the @ like email @laundry list, all one word. And the videos are basically, I'm putting up videos of customers experience, philosophies, business advice, sort of a hodgepodge of everything, but in an authentic, basically most of them take place in my laundromat, and we're interacting with customers and all the various issues and characters that come up. But it's @laundry list on the YouTube channel. And thank you for letting me plug that.
Yeah, no, and I'll have links to that. If you're on YouTube, that'll be down below so you can see it there. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, that'll be on the show notes page, the link to that as well, so that you can go over there and give Jason a subscribe over there because he's putting out good stuff.
My kids are learning. Smash all the buttons, like I keep saying the thumbs up.
Leave the comments.
That's
leave the comment. In fact, while you're here, I'd love to hear your take.
Like button.
I'd love to hear your take on passive income that we're going to keep talking about here. Because, I fully expect there to be a range of opinions about this, and I think it only benefits us to share it. So, but yeah, so go over there and subscribe over there. Jason's learning, that making content is more work than it seems like it is over there. So help him stay motivated, keep putting that work in, and go give him a subscribe and drop some likes and comments and all that stuff. So, okay. So going back to passive. Okay. So I think we're pretty much in agreement, right? If we can, have our time and money to be uncorrelated, that's kind of what we're talking about passive. It's not that we're not doing anything. Is that
right? We can make it simpler. Let's see if we can make the most money we can with the least amount of time. To me, that's passive income.
Okay.
I want to make as much money as I can with doing the least amount of work. So for me, the closest that I've come to in any business, other than investing in the stock market, because you truly do nothing. I mean, you had to earn the money to invest. But once you invest the money, you're doing nothing, and it's either going to grow or not grow. But short of that, for me, buying a laundromat is the closest business, the only business I've ever had where I can do less and earn revenue. It doesn't mean I'm doing nothing. So I agree with anyone on Facebook that's saying, there's no way you do nothing. Of course you don't do anything. But there are things that I've done in the past few years to set myself up to better be able to do less and earn the same or more money. For example, I had to put technology in so that when I'm not in the laundromat is still able to function, whether it's the lights, the door, the fans, putting in technology in starting the machines. So, I use PayRange as an app for all of my machines. And with that app, I can log in and I can actually see management reports. And believe it or not, I'm able to manage. I will know if a machine is malfunctioning. 90% of the time, the PayRange management app will tell me. It doesn't tell me the machine doesn't work, but I'll see patterns that my customers do. For example, one customer starts machine 1, machine 2, and machine 4. Why didn't they start machine 3? I can see it on the app. I can see what time they started the machines. And then I'll say to the person that's taking care of the, cleaning and taking care of the laundromat when I'm out of town, hey, do me a favor, check out machine 3. Maybe it's dirty. Maybe it's malfunctioning. Maybe it didn't start. Maybe there's a coin jammed in the coin slot. 99% of the time, there's an issue with that machine because nobody wants to do machine 1, 2, and 4. They do 1, 2, 3. So
right.
Anyway, but those are the steps that you can take to set yourself up for what I consider to be more passive income. So I don't have to be there all the time to know if a machine is not working. I can then direct somebody to, fix the machine or clean it or whatever the issue is. So that's how I would define passive income, is doing things so that you can leave the laundromat and not be as involved.
Yeah. And I want to say too, just to kind of acknowledge up front, I'm seeing an interesting bifurcation of the industry right now, which is really cool to kind of watch and see the different models that are coming out. So I'm seeing a lot of people implementing sort of the full laundry service center, where you've got self-serve laundry, you've got drop-off laundry, you've got pickup and delivery laundry. Maybe you've got a little shop where you're selling stuff too. And basically doing full service laundry center. Anybody can get their laundry done, whether they're doing it or you're doing it, whatever the case. And I'm seeing a lot of businesses kind of going your route, where it's unattended, it's as hands-off as possible. Obviously, at least for a while, that full service laundry center is going to be more hands-on than the unattended laundry. However, I do think a lot of people have no intention of trying to minimize their input. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like if you love working in your business and doing the laundry, folding laundry, whatever, or just being there with your customers, there's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, I think that's a really great thing. And if your intention is to make it as passive as possible, there's nothing wrong with that too. So I just want to everybody, there's lots of different ways to build the life that you want to build, like you're saying, right?
Right.
And that's what it comes down to.
Something that, my laundromat is well positioned to be as passive as a laundromat can be because it's unattended and it's all self-service. I don't do wash, dry, fold. I don't pick up and delivery. I don't do any of that. So if you do those full services, then of course it's going to be less passive. I mean, it's like almost any other business or company where you hire a manager, you're still involved, you're still making strategic decisions, but it's running much more as a full service business. Mine is not a full service business intentionally. Mine is a business that can generate revenue without me or anyone else having to be there for them to generate that revenue.
Yeah. And I'll say too, like you can go the full service route and still lean it pretty heavily on the passive side if you have the volume and if you have the right people and technology in place to help you manage. Like you have a killer, like I think of Dave Menz, right? Like not that Dave Menz is never in his stores, but he calls her a rock star manager, right? And she's running a big chunk of that business for him. And he's leaned it pretty far on the passive side so that he can focus on building his empire, building his business, right? Getting new customers, looking for new locations, building out his location, starting a car wash, like all the different things that he's got going on. And that's one example of that. There's lots of people doing that too. So there's different roads to similar outcomes there too. And, I guess one of the points I wanted to make is that, this business, one of the beautiful things about it is that I see passive as like a scale, right?
Yeah.
and you can kind of position it almost anywhere on the scale. There's lots of owners, especially in the past, but there's lots of owners who they sit at their laundromats all day long, every day of the week. That's what they like to do. And they're there with the community and they're just there all the time, right? Like that's all the way on the opposite side of passive. And you can lean it pretty heavily on that passive side. You can't really, I mean, maybe you could with a partner or something, but it's really hard to get it where it's totally 100% passive. But you can lean it pretty heavily over there. And there's different paths to get to either one of those or anywhere on sort of that scale there.
Right.
And
well, if it's an unattended laundromat that's all self-service, the person that's sitting in the laundromat, the owner that's there all the time, that's by choice, not out of necessity. Right.
Yeah.
Like I do spend time in my laundromat when I'm in town, but that's out of choice. It's not out of necessity. That's the beauty of passive income. If we were to put numbers on it, and I'm just going to make up numbers, if you're being paid $1,000 for 1 hour of work, then is that considered passive? You're making $1,000 an hour. What happens now if you're paid $10,000 for 40 hours of work versus working 160 hours for $10,000? Which one would you define as passive? So if you think in terms of actual numbers, I think a lot of people would agree if you can work 40 hours and make 10,000 versus 160 hours and make 10,000, the 40 hours to 10,000 is more passive. Because, a lot of laundromats, so if owners are in there 1 hour a week, 1 hour a day, or even 30 minutes a day, maybe collectively over a month, they're working 40 hours. If they're able to make $10,000 for that 40 hours, that's great. Like, to me, that's passive, or more passive than working, 40 hours a week.
Yeah. Again, it's a scale, right? It's a sliding scale of passivity, if you will. And two, like some months, you're going to work the 40 hours in the month. Some months you might work 20 hours, and some months you might work 160 hours, right? Depending on what's going on and what happens in there. But the point is that the revenue isn't tied to how many hours you work directly, right? It doesn't mean you're not going to work. It doesn't mean you're not going to work a lot of hours sometimes. Sometimes when you buy your laundromat, if it needs a lot of work and stuff, you're working more than you would a full-time job and you're making less, right? Initially. And, that's part of owning a business and building a business there. But again, I think, I want you to kind of lean into a little bit, this, I'll call it lifestyle design. That was a hot buzzword there when the 4-Hour Workweek came out, which, by the way, is a great book. If you've never read it, it's a little dated now, but it's a great book. And it's a lot about what you're talking about here, which is utilizing technology, utilizing people to help build the lifestyle that we need. And I think it's really easy to lose sight of that when we get in the day-to-day of the businesses of like, hey, whether you have a job or a business or whatever your source of revenue is, the point of it is to help you build the life that you want to build for yourself. And so, I'd love to hear a little more about like why you're building the business the way that you are and some of the other ways other than some of the technology that you're trying to utilize to help you build that lifestyle.
Right. Well, this was, I never thought about passive income or, what lifestyle I wanted in my 50s and 60s when I was in my 20s or even in my 30s. So when I bought a laundromat, it was a business opportunity for me. It wasn't, oh, this is great. I knew it had passive income and a passive income element to it, but I didn't buy it because it was passive income. It was after I bought the laundromat that I realized, wait a minute, I can earn revenue without having to be here a lot of hours. Therefore, I'm going to sort of lean into that and figure out how do I do this so that I don't have to be here a lot and I still earn money. And other than those few things I talked about with technology, the other main thing, and this is probably the biggest thing, is depends on the age of your machines. Like the best way, what is the biggest complaint that I have from customers? Oh, the machine didn't work, or the machine took my money, it didn't start, or there's an issue with it. Oh, it didn't spin. So when you buy new machines, that is one path to being more passive because you'll have less issues. And trust me, I have some new machines and I still have issues with them because, they're not perfect, but I have less issues with the new machines than I do with my older machines. So the other element would be investing in equipment because that can create more, as you say, passivity for, your lifestyle. So for me, I was fortunate. I earned money. I was able to invest the money and create enough of a nest egg where the passive income lifestyle can happen at my age now because I spent my whole life trying to build that. But the laundromat piece it produces income to cover expenses. And to me, that's the holy grail for me, is have a business that can cover your expenses so you don't have to tap into your nest egg or erode any of your principal. And I know, a lot of people aren't necessarily in that situation, but it doesn't mean you can't get to that point. So I'm at a point where the lifestyle I want is I want to work a little bit and I want to have some income and I want to be able to do the things that I want to do. And a laundromat actually allows me the luxury to do that. And that's why I wanted to do everything I could to make this set up so that I can travel and I can avoid being there more than, let's say, 10 hours a week or even 5 hours a week if I wanted. But then you also have to have a reliable person to come in and clean and take care of issues. And I actually, in one of my episodes on my YouTube channel, I talk about a partnership that I did with a local seamstress. And he comes into my laundromat 2 days a week. And we have like this little trade going where he takes care of, the issues and cleans and does that and deals with customers when I give him free space in my laundromat to promote his business and sew and fix. So, and it happens to be in the industry. So it was a great partnership. But so those are the steps that I took in order to create an environment where I don't have to be there all the time. And, anyone can do it. It's not hard. It's not complicated. It just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of thought. And you have to just take the steps to set yourself up like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's it, right? That's the formula is, put some thought into it, be creative in the way that you're trying to solve the problem. And this is, I want to actually step back for a second. This is something I think a lot of people don't do, which is actually take time, and you should do it. Like if you're listening to this, I'm gonna go back and do this again because I think the clearer you can be on this, the better. And I think you should, as soon as this episode's over, I think you should stop, find an hour and do this. Take some time and write down, define for yourself, what exactly do you want life to look like? How are you trying to optimize your life to be, right? And for you, it's like, I want to, have more time. I want to be able to travel, those types of things, right? And so when we're clear on what exactly it is that we're trying to optimize for, maybe for someone out there, it's, I want to hit a certain revenue target, right? Or maybe for someone out there, it's, I want to make the biggest impact in the community that I possibly can, right? So, but if you can figure out like, what do I want my life to look like? Specifically, what things do I want to try to accomplish through buying this business or through owning this business or these businesses, right? If you can define that, then you can get your creative mind working on how to actually optimize for that, right? You can find the seamstress who can be in there serving customers, but also sort of helping to keep an eye on the place, right? You can find the cleaner who can come in and take care of things. And, when washer number 3 is down, they can check in on things when you're in, Florence or something, right? Like
actually, in this particular case, we were in Italy at that point.
See what I'm talking about? That's what I'm talking about, dude. Italy, by the way, if you're not optimizing for going to Italy and you've never been, you should optimize for going to Italy. Italy is great. But if you're very clear on what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish, that will free your mind up to be able to be creative on how to actually get that. And I cannot emphasize more how important that is, that clarity is. And the clearer you can be, the more likely it is you're going to accomplish that, because our brains are these insane tools that we've been given that can solve problems that are in front of us if we're very clear on what that problem is.
And once you get to that nirvana, you probably won't be the person that's taken 5 years to buy your first laundromat. Because you do need that. If it's taken you 5 years, you probably need to go through that exercise to get that clarity. I mean, for me, in my not 20s, but by my mid 30s, I was trying to figure out what is the perfect balance of lifestyle that I want between work and family. And, I spent a lot of time figuring out how do I balance work life and family life and prioritize both of them equally. So it definitely changes as you get older. And right now I'm at the stage where how do I enjoy life a little more and prioritize more of the enjoyment and travel versus the work piece, and hence the laundromat with the passive income to help me achieve that.
Yeah. Well, I think that makes a great point, because those transition points are also very difficult. You hear a lot about people who maybe have done that, have defined like, what do I want life to look like, and actually went for it and optimized for it. But the thing about it is, it's not a static thing, right? Like our lives change, our phase of life changes. You become an empty nester. You move to a different location, whatever the case may be, right? Relationships change, all that stuff. So this is something that probably annually we should say, okay, I'm going to spend an hour every year just defining, like, has anything changed? Do I still want what I wanted last year? Because I'll tell you right now, like the person I am today is not the same person that I was just before I bought my first laundromat over a decade ago, right? I am a very different person. A big part of that is because of those laundromats that put me through the ringer early on and were difficult, a lot of obstacles to overcome. But also I've gone out there and I've talked to a ton of people like you now on podcast interviews and just talking, right? And I've learned so much from you and other people, and I've grown a lot and I've had all these experiences. And guess what? My goals have changed and they've shifted. My priorities have shifted as my kids have gotten older, right? So we need to keep revisiting this and saying, is this still the life that I want? Is this still the way that I want to live it? And is this still what I'm optimizing for on a regular basis? Because life throws us curveballs. Life changes a lot.
Sometimes it throws us really good laundromats to buy.
That's right. That's right. And that's what we got to be keeping an eye on too. You know what I mean? Always. Well, dude, I don't know. I'm kind of jazzed up right now. I don't know. I got excited about talking this stuff with you, philosophizing a little bit with you. I think tackling that passive income piece is interesting. I'll be interested to hear if anybody is listening to this and you've got some opinions on the passive income side of things or differences or anything like that. I would love to hear about it. If you're on YouTube, you can throw those comments down below. If you're listening on the podcast, feel free to post on the forums or shoot me an email, jordan@laundromatresource.com. And any negative emails, I'll just forward on to Jason, and I'll just keep all the positive ones. So.
I was actually told that having haters on a YouTube channel isn't bad because the algorithms don't know if it's nice or not nice. And apparently it helps.
Yeah.
Send me all the haters. That's fine.
It may help your channel, but I'll just speak from experience. It really harms the ego, especially when it's the same comments that I'm a slow talker and yada, yada. I try, man. I feel like in my head I'm talking real fast, but I guess I'm not. So, no, listen, I think the discussion is important. I'm with everybody who is sort of the anti-passive income in the sense that I think it's harmful if people get into this business or any other business thinking they're going to be making money. I mean, that's what I was told getting into it, right? Is like collect quarters once a week and, profit, right? Like that was the steps that I was given, right? And anybody who comes in thinking you're not going to do anything to earn really anything in life to earn anything positive, you're being sold something that's never going to, a pipe dream, right? So I'm with everybody on that. However, with that said, the definition of passive income of disconnecting money and time, I think is not a pipe dream. I know is not a pipe dream and is something that can be optimized for and striven for. Strived. You can strive for.
Strive. I don't think there's a D on it.
Yeah. Okay.
You can strive or reach for. How about the word reach?
Yeah, I mean, you can strive for. I was trying to think of the past tense of strive. I don't know what it is. But anyways, it's something you can accomplish.
Maybe there isn't a past tense. Strive, it implies future, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess maybe.
I haven't thought about it.
Man, talk about philosophizing, man. This is getting real philosophical over here.
Has this like been the most philosophical podcast yet, or has there been other pretty philosophical?
Yeah, probably on this episode. Maybe we should talk about the meaning of life real quick.
It may not be popular with the viewers, but we'll find out, or listeners.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't know, man, because I think this passive income thing is I think it's important. I think it's an important discussion, and I think having that, I don't like the word passive income, I think is what it comes down to, because it does imply you don't do anything, and right. I don't like that. So maybe next episode that we do together, we can come up with a different word for it and try to popularize it. So I don't know.
Yeah. And patent, whatever that word is, if you can patent a word.
Patent it and, I don't know, somehow profit again, passively. Right. Awesome. Well, Jason, man, this has been awesome. I've had like I said, I'm kind of jazzed up right now. I don't know why, but this was just an invigorating conversation for me. I love what you're doing. I've told you this before on episodes 92 and 102. I love the way that, and the Q&A, I love the way that you think about this business and business in general. And all the more reason that you out there listening should go subscribe to youtube.com/ I think at Laundrolist or Laundrolist, but we'll have the link too for you. So make sure you go subscribe to that. Dude, a lot of fun. Maybe if hey, if you're out there listening, we're at the end here. So if you're here, you're in it to win it with us. And you're interested in having more discussion about passive income, let us know. And then maybe we'll throw together a Q&A or something like that, or just a group discussion on passive income and laundromats. And we can all debate each other.
Income debate live.
Yeah. Live and in person. Well, maybe even in person. I don't know. Yeah. You got to come to me though. I'm not coming to -7 if we do it in person. I'll just tell you that.
I'll happily head to the warm weather.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, man. Thank you again for coming on once again and sharing your wisdom with us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Great discussion. And we'll have more in the future.
Yeah. You're welcome anytime around these parts. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Passive income, creative offers, the message to couch surfers, technology, and a whole lot more in that episode. I hope that you loved it as much as I did, because that was a really, really fun and enlightening conversation with Jason. So hopefully you got something good out of it. But listen, as always, philosophy is great. Understand your philosophy of what you're doing, why you're doing it. All that stuff is great and is needed. However, you're not going to achieve anything that you want to achieve without taking the action. So pick something out of this episode, whatever it might be, put it into action today, this week, and come back next week ready to pick up another action item for your to-do list. All right? All right. Peace.